What are some other possible responses to suffering someone can have?
Anger. Stress.
Anger, stress. Yeah, these are possibilities.
Envy?
Ooh. Explain.
I don't really know. I just thought maybe that would work.
Why?
I don't know anything about envy.
Oh, I think you do. I think you do.
Envy of the people that are not suffering?
Yeah, so there's an envy towards people who are not suffering, or moreover, envy towards people who we perceive as not suffering. So you have, for example, who doesn't suffer in life? Everyone has suffering, but if we're being superficial about it, if we're being 2022 about it, rich people don't suffer, and famous people don't suffer. So people who have more than us, people who have the things that we want, we're going to say are the ones who are not suffering. So that tells us something, that we believe that the cause of our suffering largely is because of the things that we don't have, that we do want. We want to be rich, we want fame, and so when we see people who are rich and famous, we think, oh my God, what are they crying about? They're suffering. They're talking about how they're suffering. Oh, they don't know what real suffering is. That reminds me of, or if any of you guys have that family member where you tell them that you're in love, and they're like, love? You don't know what love is. You know, it's like, gee, thanks. Just took a big dump on your feelings. You know, do they know that what you're feeling is love or not? They don't know. You know, but they're very quick. Why? Because they're talking about their own frame of reference. But it's really difficult to. It's very difficult to live effectively through your own frame of reference persistently and not consider others. Is it possible that someone is in love at 15? Yeah. One of my former students met her boyfriend in high school. They've been together since they were like sophomores. They got married, I think, year before last, and their first baby's gonna be born any day. They've been together for quite a while, and you look at them and you're like, oh, they'll be together probably forever. There's something about it. You know, people say all the time, like, oh my God, they seem like they're so much in love. No, they seem like they're so much in devotion. That's very different from looking at them and saying that they look like they're in love. They look like they're in significant devotion to each other, and they have some shared ideals to which they're equally devoted. And so all that together suggests probably a lifelong commitment. But when we say things like, oh, the rich and famous kind of, they don't know what suffering is. It's the same as when your drunk uncle is telling you, you don't know what love is. Maybe, maybe not. I guess only the person who's there knows, but again, what does that have to do with you? If whether you're in love or not, what impact does that have on a person who's telling you that you don't know what love is? Why the need to tell you something like that? Why the need to try to drag you and pull you back down? Oh, probably there's a good deal of envy that's going on there because they have forgotten what it was like, or it's been so long since they've experienced it that they wish that they could experience it again. This is our tendency to drag people down. If someone's having a great day, why do you feel the need to drag them down? And that's a real question. That's not a rhetorical question. That's a real question. Why do I have the need to drag people down when they seem like they're having good days? There's got to be a reason for it, and the reason for it is certainly something that's inside of me. It's like if you're somebody who, I have a good friend of mine, has a lot of road rage incidents. She has a lot of trouble with other drivers, people cutting her off, and people not waiting their turns at stop signs, things like that, and she gets angry a lot. God, I don't remember the last time I had an incident like that, those kinds of problems. Do those sort of things happen? Maybe, maybe not. But it'd be a weird thing if like 100 incidents a year happened to her and 0 happened to me. How many? I don't know, maybe it's somewhere that's in between, but maybe there's something in her that is the way that she drives. And by the way, it is the way that she drives. You know, sometimes we'll get to a stop sign and someone else will go, and she'll go ahead, I guess. Even though it's my turn, go ahead. And she gets angry. It wasn't her turn. That car was there before her. But she's also not the kind of person you can turn to and go, you're wrong about that. They were here before you. It's not going to get you anywhere. But that means that there's something in her perceptions of the world, that's causing her to have road rage a lot. And you'll find that. If you're somebody who's envious, there's something inside of you that's causing you to be envious. And a lot of it is going to come down to, obviously, envy, but also this idea, deeper than just this, is also the idea that you believe, perhaps, that the problems of your life are material. In other words, the problem of my life is if I just had more money, well, what would you do with more money? Oh, I would buy, and fill in the blank. Okay, and then what? We're going to be happy. Well, yeah, until the next one. Is that your plan for life? To keep buying new stuff, to try to keep this happy train going? And it's like when you ask, people will say, like, I think I mentioned I have a former student he told me he has a goal of getting a job. So all I want is a job where I can sit on the beach and work from my laptop and earn like $100,000 a year. I'll be fine at that. Like, oh, that's all you want? That's it? Oh, that's a simple thing, right? Those jobs are everywhere. Earn $100 grand to sit on the beach and work on your laptop a few hours a day. Of course, it's an incredibly rare thing to have. But until that thing happens, of course, he's going to feel like he's unhappy. And that's a very convenient thing, by the way. Because if you can set your sights on something that's that you think is outside of your reach anyway, it's certainly outside of the reach of what you're willing to go out there and get and to do. But if you can set your sights on something like, if I set my sights on this Diet Coke, and I'm like, man, if I could just reach that Diet Coke, I'd be happy. Well, why don't you just kind of reach forward and get it? I can't. There's too many things. My feet are wet. If I start to walk, I could slip. What if I get over there and an earthquake happens, it falls off? Do you think that's likely? Well, we come up with all kinds of weird excuses to explain why we can't just go forward and get the thing that we say that we want. But of course, that's because the thing that's lacking is not the Diet Coke. It's something inside of myself that's willing to go get it. But here's the trick on it, though. It isn't that the truth is that the Diet Coke is not going to make me happy. I probably realize that. And so therefore, it's a convenient reason. It's a convenient excuse. Well, if I go get this and I pick this up and I'm not happy, well, now I've got something to contend with. Oh my goodness, that didn't make me happy. Will I ever be happy?
Open it and drink.
Well,
Fair point.
it might give me a bit of joy. This is true if I open it and drink it. But it's a convenient thing. If I could just get that job that pays me $100,000 to sit on the beach and work a few hours a day, you're not going to get that. Because to get something like that, you have to do a whole lot of stuff that you have to work, 70 hours a week in an office or 70 hours a week in a place where you don't want to be, doing stuff you don't want to do, to get to a position of that kind of privilege. And that's genuine privilege, to be privileged enough to do something like that. So it gives us a convenient excuse. This is why I'm not happy, because the things I want are outside of my reach. But again, perhaps the problem is that idea of want. The things that you want are the things that they're actually making you unhappy. The things that we think are going to make us feel happy are oftentimes the things that lead us headlong into harm, as the song goes. So maybe the problem is what we're pursuing, but more deeply, it's probably our perceptions of things. It's my friend's perception which makes her think that everybody in the world is a terrible driver, and that's the cause of her unhappiness as a driver. That's why she hates driving. Maybe it's your perception that's causing you to hate driving, and therefore now you start to see things like that, and you start to kind of pick fights, as it were. Same with stress. Perhaps the problem is that we're stressing about things that haven't materialized. Maybe they're never even going to materialize. But we worry about them. Think about the stresses in your life. How often do they actually materialize? We suffer far more in thoughts than we do in actuality. Meaning that we suffer for things that are never going to happen. And we don't really celebrate very often for things that never happen. That seems silly to us. But we worry and we worry and we worry about stuff that never quite happens. You can worry about your problems. But worrying about your problems it's like chewing bubble gum to try to solve an algebra equation. One's got nothing to do with the other now. And so because your worrying is not going to help you, in fact, worrying is going to make it worse and make it more difficult for you to come up with solutions. So again, maybe the thing is inside of yourself. With anger, maybe the thing is inside of yourself. Apathy, man, Absolutely, 100%. That's something that's inside of us. If we're going through life just like shoulder shrugging, I don't know, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. You obviously care because you exist, but then it's doing the work to find out the things that you care about, to figure out why you care about them. But that's a lot of work for most people. And it's not a terrible thing, but understand that happiness is also an uncommon thing for most people. It's a weird correlation there, isn't it? And happiness is as rare as people who are willing to examine themselves. I'll say that again. Happiness is as rare as people who are willing to examine themselves. And if you can do that second thing, you can probably attain the first thing. Because all of these things start to go away. You find meaning and purpose in life, a reason to get up and transcend suffering. Because maybe for the 100th and 150th time this year, I'll say it, life is suffering. You don't get to choose not to suffer. Suffering is endemic in life. It's part of life as much as breathing. But you can find things that make the suffering worthwhile. Some of us have parents who hate their jobs. Well, why do they do it? Because they have families to provide for. It gives them meaning and purpose. Even if they have, I don't know, even if they have shithead kids who don't really appreciate them as much as they should, still, they transcend that suffering as well and get us new phones and stuff. Do the things that, because the new phones are the things that we think are going to make us happy. And what do they know about it? So it's like, well, I'll give you the things that are going to make you happy at the moment because they can kind of feel that joy as well. It kills apathy. It chases it away. Same with anger. Examine ourselves. Figure out why we're so angry. There's almost no benefit to this. It just destroys your life. Stress, envy, all of these things can be done away with if we just examine ourselves. Figure out what it is that's causing these things in our lives. And don't just ignore them. We should treat, like with depression, you should treat depression like a woman who shows up at your door wearing black. Kind of mysterious. What's going on here? Don't slam the door and go, wrong house. Come on in. Have a seat. You want something to drink? Want something to eat? So tell me, what's going on? In other words, interview your depression. Find out what brought it here today. And then you can start to deal with it, address it. Same with your anger and your apathy and envy and stress. Don't try to chase it away. Don't give into it. Invite it in. Ask it to have a seat. Figure out what it wants. Talk to it. And then once that happens, now you can figure out how to eradicate it from your life and no longer deal with those things. But I promise you, if you don't deal with these things, you're not going to be able to enjoy these things. Because rather than wealth or even fame being something that adds to our life, it becomes something that adds to the current complications of our life. All we have to do is look to mainstream society to see rich and famous people who are apathetic, angry, stressed out, and envious of others still. And think, geez, how happy do they seem? On a screen, maybe, with editors and producers and post-production and CGI, they look a little happy, but peering into private lives, man, that tells us an entirely different story. But who cares? If Tom Cruise is happy, that's got no bearing on my life. If he's miserable, has no bearing on my life. Has some bearing on the envious person's life. But that would be a good thing to get rid of that thing, because then, of course, you can focus on yourself. So it's not the suffering that causes people to revolt from their own lives, or to revolt in terms of revolution, but it's an awareness of something better, which excites people to that. That's the power of media. That's the power of social media, of news media, of movies, of TV, that people who are living in absolute squalor can watch those things and realize, there's something way better out there than what I presently have. I'll leave with this. I remember being in high school and standing on Sunset Boulevard with some friends of mine, and in Echo Park, it was a crappy neighborhood. It's nice now. I wish it was that nice when I lived there, but it was a crappy neighborhood. And Sunset Boulevard cuts through Echo Park, so when there's a lot of traffic on the freeway, people will get off the freeway and just drive Sunset all the way up, and it takes you into like Beverly Hills, Bel Air, it takes you Westwood, like UCLA, takes you through Hollywood, but that's all over here. My neighborhood was over here somewhere, and once in a while you'd be staying on Sunset and you'd see like Ferraris go by in your neighborhood, or Porsches, Bugattis, and every one time we're staying out on Sunset, this Ferrari is going by, probably on its way to Hollywood or Beverly Hills or something. My friends and I are just watching this car go by, like a car that's worth more than most of our houses, And my friend just goes, "Man, it sucks being poor." Just walks away, and we were sitting there like, we're poor? And when you're living over there, it really hits you. You get to see it every day. Because, you live in neighborhoods that, in Los Angeles, there would be a really nice neighborhood next to a crappy neighborhood, next to an okay neighborhood, next to a nice one. So, people intermingle, and you get to see what you don't have all the time. And that becomes a very unpleasant way of living, to see what other people have, and we don't even know what we want, or why we want it. I mean, I was like, whatever I was, like 14 years old when that happened. I'd never driven a car before, much less a Ferrari. Why the hell would I have wanted a Ferrari? I didn't know what the thing could do. I just knew that it was a thing I didn't have and couldn't afford. It was worth more than what I had, so therefore, I should want that thing. Well, the funny thing is, once you get rid of the desire for that thing, well, now you have a clear path for being happy and finding the things that do make you happy. Maybe the thing that makes you happy is a Ferrari, by the way, but your happiness isn't dependent on it. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms?